regular council meeting be amended to include item 11.2, Fire Hall Progressive Design Build Construction Services Contract, and that item 11.2 be moved to the beginning of the agenda, and that the agenda be adopted as amended.
Could I get a mover and seconder? Councillor Ramadas and Councillor McIsaac. Can I call the vote? Thanks, Kev. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. And the staff recommendation that the minutes of the May 26, 2026 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I get a mover and seconder? Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Shoesmith. Any questions? All in favor? That was unanimous. Public participation period. So I'm just going to read this out. We invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. A speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to state their full name and community of residence. Do we have anyone in the gallery who'd like to speak? Anyone online? Okay. Well, we'll move right ahead to item 11.1, Fire Hall Progressive Design Build and Construction Services Contract, a report from our Manager of Engineering, Mr. Pinnell. Just bear with us. We're having some technical issues.
All right. Thank you for your patience. Your Honorable Acting Mayor and Council, here tonight to present the progress that we've made on the Fire Hall Progressive Design Build project and the stage we're sitting at right now, which is trying to engage in a construction services contract. So we'll go through the presentation here today, first with the court decision update, then we'll review the progressive design build process as an overview. We'll go through the owner's statement of requirements, the stipulated price summary, facility design description, give you an idea of what we are going to get, and construction timeline, what to expect. So we're here tonight, obviously in a bit of a rush because we just got a court decision yesterday. The city's received notice from the Supreme Court, Justice Baker, that dismissed the Prentice Park Society's petition, concluding that the land is not held in trust and that council followed proper and good process in determining the future fire hall site. So we'll go through the progressive design build. You may see PDB as well. That's what progressive design build, I guess, is shortened to. The process overview first is phase one with the pre-construction services. First, we went through site and builder due diligence, looking at site selection, etc. Then we did a schematic design with a Class C cost estimate. Design development to 70% with Class B cost estimates. That was presented in November. And we went and asked to progress the design to 100%. To set us better up for the open book negotiations and establishing a phase two design build construction contract. And that's where we stand today. We've developed a contract, formed a basis for the stipulated sum. And we'd like to progress to phase two, which is the construction service, which involves the finalization of all the construction documents. So getting those drawings that are in a tender package right now to IFC, issued for construction, getting those tenders out and secured, the sub-trade contractors secured their shop drawings, and all the procurement of the long lead items started as soon as possible, which gets you right into construction, and then to finish off with commissioning and hand over to operations so that we can run out of the new fire hall. So I'll go through the owner's statement of requirements. This is a really key document that forms the basis of the contract. In the OSR, you find some key contents that kind of shape what the stipulated price is based on. So first off, there's the stipulated price summary. There's the basis of the budget and a detailed budget breakdown. Like I said, it's an open book negotiation, and the design builder shows you line by line all the trades, all the items that they've included in their cost, so that you understand where all the money is being spent. There's a risk register that we explore all the risks that we can foresee on the project and assign ownership between the contractor and the owner ourselves. So where appropriate, they carried some risk, which we pay for up front in a stipulated sum, and where appropriate, we've assumed some of the risk and we hold that in our contingency. Sorry, yeah.
A moment, please, Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I didn't see it in the report, but what happens if we encounter a risk that isn't on the risk register, something that is unforeseen? How does that then get allocated, that budget change?
Mayor, through to council. So the CCDC contract, the construction contract, stipulates a change management process. So the first thing you do in that situation is you'd be looking at the I guess the source of the unknown. And the stipulated sum has a whole bunch of conditions that basically through our risk register, we've determined, is it an act of nature? Is it a market condition? And we've gone even to certain details around tariffs and price escalation, et cetera. If it's the owner just blatantly asking for a different scope, that's a pretty easy change order. They say, that's not what you originally asked for. Here's the change for approval. And then if we approve that, if it's within budget, within our contingency, and it's something we've justified needing, that was just for whatever reason missed, then that's how you would manage that change. Obviously, we would be flagging any forecasted spend beyond the budget well before we were spending it. The real risk comes in where you have maybe a change. Two big risks on this project, as we understand with the design builder, is you don't progress it far enough before you establish the contract. So there's a lot more unknowns in the design development. In this case, we've brought it to essentially ready to build. All the subs that have seen the design, they're seeing it at 99%. It's just not issued for construction yet, but it's not subject to much change at all. And then the other key is that the fire chief and fire team have been involved the whole way, so they're not reviewing it now that we're establishing a contract and saying, well, I wanted this different. So those are two big sources of changes that would be on the owner side, and I think we've managed and controlled. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
So that kind of, I guess, went into the risk register a little more there. The tender analysis is where the design builder, again, open book, shows us all of the different bids they received on various subtrades and why they've recommended the subtrade they have. They show us the cost comparison and the quality of the bids themselves. So a lot of work. I'm glad we had a design builder to do that for us. And I think they also have been agile to be able to extend those tender pricing for us. So that leads us to the construction and procurement schedule. That schedule has been set and reset since March, April, May, and June now, as we were awaiting a court decision. So there will be a final revised schedule as part of the contract in this OSR document. And the construction site logistics plan, the design drawings and specifications, which we'll have a quick look into some of the highlights in this presentation. So these are the numbers. This is how we've come up with I guess this is how the budget now compares to the budget that was presented in July last year, July 2025, I should say. So the $16 million budget that was established is, we're happy to say we're still under that. And the biggest change here is we've assigned a lot of the risk. We have a lot of known costs now established. And our contingency, our cost certainty and confidence is that much higher that our contingency of 5% is what we recommend carrying through, which gives us a total project budget of $15,884,900,000. Or yeah, that's a long number to say, $15,884,900. I'll go into a little more detail here on how the stipulated construction contract price, that's the first bolded number there. That's the one that has a lot more detail. Again, I apologize, the writing, there's a lot to show on this, a lot number of lines, but some of the big hitters are the general requirements. That's the contractor's requirements, site supervision, administration, their safety, their site offices, their out of town living allowances, etc. Pay for their pickup truck, fuel, all those things, their insurance. That's the largest. That's the service we're paying for as a construction contractor to manage all of the build. The mechanical is the next biggest package, and followed by, it's called metals in this, but it's precast concrete and the structural steel. That's all from the builder with precast items. Oh, sorry.
Councillor Ramadan?
Thanks, Your Worship. I've got a small question here. At the peak of construction, how many personnel are we expecting on the site?
That's a good skill testing question. I had it on the top of my mind probably a month ago. I believe it was between 30 and 40 personnel, but generally, I think it's somewhere around between 15 and 20. And that was mostly discussed in detail based on how many washrooms we needed to make sure that we had that site logistics sorted. But yeah, it's not a huge workforce, and there's constraints with that size facility as to how many folks you can get on each crew. So, so yeah, we talked about the precast concrete. That's a big package. It's a big tilt up style. That's all the walls and the roofing for the building. And then the electrical package, as you can imagine, there's a lot that goes into some of the building automation, the lighting, alarms, the backup generator, security system. The earthworks portion, that's all of our general site grading, excavation, get it prepped for foundation, and that's the bulk of the work that would be occurring right away, obviously, is breaking ground and getting set for foundations. I won't go through the rest of the items, but those are the larger line items within the stipulated price. And I guess, yeah, we can look at some of the facility highlights, and I'll try to look up, and if there's more questions as we go, let me know. So this is kind of a 3D render from the front and the back of the building with as you see it here, the emergency vehicles parked out front onto 5th Street. So the facility is just under 16,000 square feet. There's four pull-through double-loaded apparatus bays. That means that there'd be 2 pieces of equipment parked one in front of the other in each of those 4 bays. There's an integrated hose tower, which you can see from the backside render. And there's a multi-purpose training and EOC room, which is the kind of slanted roof portion on this street front. And looking at the site plan, just over or 2.25 acres space. And the driveway entrance, like I said, is off of 5th Ave. There's 12 public parking spaces and 20 staff parking spaces for all the firefighters and volunteer firefighters, facilitate their training needs and responding, having a dedicated parking spot when they need to respond and be as close to the building as possible. The paved parking area is the darker portion, and then there's some extended gravel training, and then there's also a gravel laneway to access parking for the pavilion and the park washrooms, which gets shifted. The parking gets kind of reoriented compared to how it is today. The first floor, some highlights from the first floor plan is, like I said, the 40-seat multi-purpose training / EOC room. The 2 offices, 1 open office and a reception desk. There's 1 public bathroom just off of the main lobby, 2 staff bathrooms. There's a clean side and a dirty side. The dirty side is so that they can decontaminate, I guess, after responding to an emergency. 30 gear lockers. There's a gear cleaning and a decon shower for the gear, for them wearing the gear. And there's a day room and kitchen on the first floor as well, combined. On the upper floor, there's 3 dorm rooms, 2 bathrooms, a fitness room, and storage spaces. So it'd be a little more space for the folks compared to the cramped fitness room picture you have there, where they're trying to do some training in a tiny space. I'll go through the construction schedule overview here. Obviously, there's a very detailed Gantt that would be impossible to put on this screen, but if the contract is awarded in June. You would see quite a bit of action in June and into July, which would be the IFC drawings and tender packages issued, the building permit issued, and then mobilization and procurement of the long lead items, and starting to generate all the shop drawings with the sub-trades. So zooming out again, mobilization and site prep in late June, starting the excavation, civil and foundations, generally all completed by September. Then having the structure and building envelope erected in November, with the envelope fully closed by March. The mechanical, electrical, and interior finishing would then be through to July next year, followed by commissioning activities and handover in September. So the recommendation, as found in the report, is that council award a contract with Chandos Construction LP valued at $14,330,090 for the construction of the city's new fire hall, and that the staff be authorized to administer the remainder of the project budget up to the total project budget of $16 million as previously approved by council, and that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to sign all documentation to execute the contract.
Any questions from council? Councillor McIsaac?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just one question. Assuming if council decides to approve the contract signing tonight, that's it for coming back to council for further approvals, right? That's underway. We don't have any more meetings. Am I correct in that understanding?
Mayor, through to council, believe so. As we highlighted in the report, there would be updates on the project, generally through Let's Talk in the fire hall page. But like I said, ideally, no more authorization if we are authorized to spend per the value that we've highlighted today for the contract and within the budget.
Thank you.
Councillor Ramadas?
Thanks, Your Worship. On that note, something piqued my interest. Like, if there is a change order of some sort in the future, does that come to the council or the staff manages it at its own level?
That's why we've asked for authorization to administer the remainder of the project budget so that we can manage changes within the contingency. It's for expediency on a change like that. It wouldn't really make sense in the construction schedule to be coming back to council. So the approved budget, like we said, and the updated budget we've shown, we ask for authorization to administer those changes. If it was beyond the budget, then we would be coming back and asking for a purchasing policy.
Councillor Nixon?
Thank you, Your Acting Worshipfulness. I just had a question about the grant and the status of the grant. If we have remind us when we can find out about that again. Thank you very much, Mr. Burdett.
I'm expecting to hear back this month, and that's just based on the, the seminar I attended put on by UBCM, who administered this grant last year. They said it would probably take around 9 months, and we applied in September. So I'm expecting June, but it could be later, and that's my best guess.
Any other questions from council? No? Councillor Ramadas?
Thanks, Your Worship. Just wondering in terms of payment schedules, like how does that look like? And is there some sort of schedule or Gantt that you can show in terms of, how much we're going to spend from here on and when the grant might come in and things like those? Just curious.
I can try. Yeah, so again, once the contract is formed, generally the contractor will lay out a progress payment schedule and we can integrate that into our annual capital budget. So we know what to expect as our drawdown, I guess, on that budget, and how that split is for this year versus next year. Those progress payments come with kind of proof of progress, obviously. So if there's delays in construction, there's also usually delays in the invoicing too. Again, the big curveball could be if there's a change. Getting the grant, I don't know, would be, I guess, just a change in how the funds are allocated from borrowing versus a grant, right?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is I would just be monitoring current interest rates that we're earning with our reserves, because that's one source of funding, and what the current borrowing rate is, and deciding which one to draw from first, so that we pay as little interest as possible and make as much as possible.
Anyone else have any questions? Councillor Hamilton?
No questions, just it's a huge relief that we finally hit this stage, and kudos to all of the staff who have brought us to this point and all the work that's gone into it. So I would like to move the recommendation.
Seconder? Councillor Nixon? I do have one question before we vote. Are we still negotiating with the RD about their contribution?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Adia Kelly. Negotiating, no, they've had that in this year's budget. And then council, I think, can expect to see the updated contract with them. I believe it's coming July 14th meeting, extending that services agreement with them, which will have the new amount in that agreement. The only thing they asked was to have a portion of their contribution funded through borrowings, because that was a big jump to have it all lump sum for them. But yeah, no, the amount they know and they have in their budget now.
Thank you. Anything further? Oh, Councillor Shoesmith, sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Adia Kelly. Seeing as it's on the floor now, I don't think it's any secret to anybody that the overall strategy and plan here is something that I have disagreed with. However, what's before us right now is not what to do, but how to do it. And I see a pretty coherent report and a decent contract. I'm not so puerile or infantile as to have a fight for a fight's sake and have a tantrum, as this didn't go my way earlier. I think that the best thing is to move forward, and that in terms of how we're actually going to execute this looks really promising.
Thanks, Councillor. I would agree, and I would also like to thank staff and to thank the community for all the engagement through this process. It has been not without its trials, but I would like to see all of us go forward as a community. It's important that we do that. We're a community, and I think that that's something that we all need to really remember. And the decision was made, and the contract, I think staff worked really, really hard. And I think it's important to point that out to get the best contract and best dollar value. So thank you. Is there anything further from anyone? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Manager. I'm not sure if there's a report to accompany this one, the adoption of Cedar Avenue Highway closure and removal of Highway Dedication Bylaw number 2553, 2026. No. Oh, Councillor Ramirez? You want to move it? So staff recommendation, can I get our Deputy Corporate Officer to read?
That Cedar Avenue Highway closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw number 2553-2026 be adopted.
I have a mover of Councillor Ramadus, Councillor Hamilton, you're seconding. Thank you. Any further questions? And just a comment, go ahead, Councillor Shoesmith.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Audia Kelly. I think people get the point that we're not actually closing the road.
Thanks, Councillor Shoesmith. Nothing further? All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, which is item 10.2, the 2026 general local election, the governance framework update and consideration of initial readings of election bylaws, and a report from our corporate officer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I just get a quick mic check? Can you hear me? Is the volume good?
I can hear you quite well. Thanks, corporate officer.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, so good evening, Deputy Mayor, Your Worship and Council. Tonight, I am bringing forward two separate election governance bylaws as a package for Council's consideration as part of the city's preparation for the 2026 general local election. These bylaws establish the legislative framework that supports how municipal elections and assent voting processes are administered in Fernie. While much of the election process is governed by provincial legislation, local governments are responsible for establishing certain procedures through bylaw and ensuring those procedures are in place well in advance of an election. The proposed bylaws this evening repeal and replace the city's existing election bylaws and reflect a comprehensive review undertaken by staff to ensure our framework remains current, legislatively compliant, operationally practical, and aligned with current best practices in local administration. The objective is to ensure the city is prepared to administer a transparent, accessible, and well-organised election that supports public confidence in the democratic process. Before discussing these bylaws themselves, staff think it is important to highlight the various roles involved in the administration of an election. Unlike federal or provincial elections, local elections are administered directly by the local government. The City of Fernie is responsible for conducting the municipal election, including appointing a chief election officer and ensuring voting opportunities, ballot administration, and election results are managed in accordance with the legislation. At the same time, Elections BC is responsible for campaign financing, third-party advertising, and candidate financial disclosure requirements under a separate legislation. The province of BC establishes the legislative framework through the Local Government Act, the Community Charter, and the School Act, while the city is responsible for implementing those requirements locally. In addition, the city will once again conduct the school trustee election on behalf of School District 5. This shared framework requires strong local governance, clear procedures, and careful planning to ensure all legislative obligations are met. The city's existing framework continues to provide legal authority for election administration. However, election administration is an area that continues to evolve through legislative updates, administrative guidance, also accessibility considerations, and operational experience gained from previous election cycles. As part of the preparations for the 2026 general local election, staff undertook a comprehensive review of the current bylaws against provincial legislation, the current election administration practices and guidance provided through the 2026 BC Local Elections Manual. Through that review, we identified opportunities to improve clarity, remove outdated references, modernise the language, and ensure the bylaws support efficient administration without being unnecessarily restrictive. One of the key principles guiding this review was ensuring the bylaws establish the necessary governance framework while still allowing the Chief Election Officer sufficient flexibility to respond to operational circumstances during an election period, as permitted under the provincial legislation. This approach is consistent with current best practices and helps reduce administrative risk while maintaining legislative compliance. So the proposed bylaws this evening are primarily administrative in nature. They do not substantially alter how electors, how our community will participate in the election process. Residents will continue to vote using the same general approach they are familiar with today. Instead, the updates focus on ensuring the city's procedures are current, clear, and practical to administer. The election and assent voting procedures bylaw updates legislative references, modernises the language, and provides greater administrative flexibility where legislation permits. It also supports accessibility administration and allows election officials to effectively respond to operational requirements throughout the election period. The automated vote counting system authorization bylaw continues the city's authorization to use automated vote counting equipment while updating and clarifying associated provisions. So together, these bylaws provide a strong administrative framework with transparency, accountability, and compliance with legislation. The Local Government Act establishes a number of timelines that local governments must meet when adopting election procedures. One of the most significant requirements is the election procedure bylaw must be adopted at least 56 days before the opening of the nomination period. And I'll go through that later on in the slides here. Bringing these bylaws forward now ensures the city comfortably meets those statutory requirements and avoids unnecessary risk as election preparations continue. From an administrative perspective, early adoption also provides certainty for election planning, training of staff, voter information materials, accessibility planning, and implementation of these election procedures. This proactive approach helps ensure the city is well positioned to deliver a smooth and effective election process. This is our 2026 election timeline. Election administration is not an activity that begins a few weeks before voting. Planning and preparation have been underway since October last year, 2025, and will continue through to the completion of post-election reporting requirements in early 2027. The nomination period begins on September the 1st, and it remains open until September the 11th. Following nominations, candidates for mayor and council enter the campaign period leading up to general voting day on October the 17th. And this year, it's on Saturday, October the 17th. Provincial legislation in the city's election bylaws are also required to provide advance voting opportunities. These are currently scheduled for October the 7th and October the 14th. These advanced voting opportunities are for folks who primarily cannot attend general voting day on October the 17th. These dates create a structured election cycle that drives a significant amount of administrative preparation, communications planning, training for staff, voting place coordination, and legal compliance work. Having the election framework finalised early provides certainty for those preparations and allows staff to focus on implementation. And as we progress through the election cycle, more information will surface. An important component of election administration is ensuring residents have access to accurate, timely, and understandable information. Over the coming months, staff will continue expanding election information available starting tomorrow on the city's website and will work with communications to support public awareness efforts. Once appointed, the Chief Election Officer will work with staff to develop a robust election communications plan that provides information through multiple channels and formats. The intent is not simply to tell our residents where and when to vote, but also to help our residents better understand the role of local government in the election process. Residents will have multiple avenues to obtain election information throughout the election cycle. We have an email address for folks to send their questions to in the lead up to general voting day. Staff will continue updating the City of Fernie's 2026 general local election landing page on our website at fernie.ca. And once appointed, the Chief Election Officer will become the primary point of contact for all election-related inquiries. Here is our staff recommendation this evening. In closing, the proposed bylaws represent a proactive update to the city's election governance framework. They align with the city's procedures and current legislation best practices. They provide appropriate administrative flexibility and support the efficient delivery of the 2026 general local election and future election and assent voting processes. Approval of the recommended readings at this time will ensure that the city remains compliant with statutory timelines and allows staff to continue advancing election preparations with certainty and confidence. The recommendation for Council's consideration is to give initial readings to both the automated vote counting system authorization bylaw and the election and assent voting procedures bylaw. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions Council may have.
Thanks, Corporate Officer. Any questions from anyone at all? No? Seeing none. Can I have our Deputy Corporate Officer read the first recommendation, please?
That automated vote counting system authorization bylaw number 2554-2026 be given first, second, and third readings.
Councillor McIsaac and second by Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Ramadas, did you have a question?
Yes, Your Worship. I'm just curious. I don't know if anyone else picked up from the report. Is there one or two examples that corporate officer can give in terms of what improvements that we had on this bylaw package? Because I didn't see any editing or anything.
For sure. So the main differences from the last set of governance bylaws compared to these ones are that the legislation now provides for accessibility options, and they give that authority to the Chief Elections Officer to create a procedure or a process on the day of election, advanced voting opportunities in the general voting day. So that was the biggest change. Also, the language has changed, and a good example of that is something as simple as a ballot envelope is now called a ballot enclosure. So trying to update and modernize our language in and around that piece, because that's kind of peppered throughout both of those bylaws. So those are the main differences. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Anything further? Okay, we can call the vote. All in favor? That is unanimous. Can I have our Deputy Corporate Officer read the second staff recommendation?
That election and assent voting procedures bylaw number 2557-2026 be given first, second, and third readings.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor Shoesmith. Any questions? Well, call the vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Worship.
Corporate Officer. Next up on the agenda, we have the item 10.3, which is our zoning bylaw number 1750, amendment bylaws number 2551, 2026, the small scale multi-unit housing bill 25 update, a report from our manager of planning, Mr. Similini. Welcome.
Good evening, council. Bear with me while I bring up the presentation. Good evening again, council. Tonight I am bringing forward a bylaw 2551, which is an update to our small scale multi-unit housing regulations within the city. Just a quick review. Back in the fall of 2023, the province brought forward Bill 44, which to Fernie essentially meant that all of our single family and duplex zones had to allow between 3 and 4 dwelling units per lot, depending on the parcel size. In summary, anything from 250 square meters to 280 square meters had to allow 3 dwelling units, and anything above that had to allow 4 dwelling units. In response to that legislation, in late 2024, Council adopted bylaw 2517, which consolidated all of our single family zones, for example, the R1, R1B, R1SL small lot zones, as well as our duplex zones into one zone called the RSS, our residential small scale zone, that met this legislation. Moving forward, in late 2025, the province brought forward Bill 25, which essentially was a clarification of Bill 44. They just wanted to ensure that communities were consistently applying the legislation. And that prompted us to do a review of what we had done. And we did have a couple of things that came up that we were sort of, I guess, a little bit questionable as to whether or not we needed to take care of them. So that prompted us to contact the province. And they did note that we didn't have any, we weren't flagged as being non-compliant, but they appreciated that staff has more of an intimate knowledge of the zoning bylaw, and we went through some of the changes together and agreed to move forward with bylaw 2551. I'll speak first to the legislative changes we're making, because there's some legislative changes as well as some sort of housekeeping or streamlining changes that make applying the bylaw a little bit easier, taking away some red tape. First of all, our RMH zone, or our modular home residential zone, so essentially the Fernie Mobile Home Park as well as Slalom Drive. This is applying to fee simple lots, so Slalom Drive particularly. We changed the zoning there to allow up to 4 dwelling units per lot. Whether or not it's feasible on those lots is a question. However, if there are other lots zoned that in the future, it would allow that. That's due to the province's the province's definition of manufactured or modular homes. Their definition is essentially if you can hook up to something and move it, you were exempt from the legislation. However, in this case, our definition is different. A lot of those homes are on foundations and they're not easily movable. So we did change our bylaw to allow for up to 4 units on those lots. Related to that, we also removed the maximum floor height of the floor of a manufactured or modular home. It said that it had to be a maximum of 6 feet above the ground. So there was really no opportunities to have anything underneath it as far as living space. This does allow for more living space to happen underneath. So if you wanted to build a foundation with a sort of a basement in it, you could do that. The main.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Just a quick question on that point. I'm assuming that is all also subject to flood construction levels, and we still need to build within those constraints?
Through the council, that's correct. So you'd have to build to flood construction level if you were building a home zoned in this area, if there was anything in the floodplain, noting that there are no areas zone this in the floodplain now, but there could be in the future. It's also worth noting that there still is a maximum building height. So the maximum peak of the building is still regulated. So you can't just build a huge tower of buildings. This was just related to the distance from the finished grade to the floor of the building. Second was the rural residential zone. Our zone right now has a minimum parcel size of 4,030 square meters. The province says that anything smaller than 4,050 square meters needs to allow up to 4 dwelling units. We were aware of this originally, but we had thought, well, this is a minimum parcel size for us. When people create lots, they're generally creating them larger than 4,050. But nonetheless, we made the call to change the zoning to allow up to 4 dwelling units on those rural residential parcels. There's a lot of room on those parcels generally. Fitting 4 dwelling units, not an issue. We also eliminated a 2-bedroom limit on secondary suites in the rural residential zone. So that just gives more options. If you build a secondary suite or a secondary dwelling unit on one of those parcels, or a 3rd or a 4th dwelling unit, it can be larger than two bedrooms now. So just quickly run over some of the housekeeping or streamlining bylaws. We did allow an additional 5% parcel coverage in our RSS zone. That 5% parcel coverage can only be contributed towards accessory buildings or accessory structures. So for example, if you have a house on your lot right now that covers 25% and you wanted to build a secondary dwelling unit, you could go up to 40%. But if you wanted to include some amenity space, balconies, or if you wanted to build a small garage or something in addition, that 5% gives you that option to do that. So it just gives a little bit more room. We were seeing a lot of those, some proposals coming in that would otherwise have to go for variances. So it just removes that legislative requirement. And then lastly, back to the RMH zone. This was purely a housekeeping. When we, council may recall, we clarified definitions of manufactured and modular homes. It was just a find and replace there in the bylaw. So instead of saying manufactured and modular, it just said manufactured and manufactured homes. So we just wanted to make sure that the terminology was correct. So that just brings us to our recommendations tonight, and I'll leave that to the corporate officer to go over.
Any questions from council? Councillor Ramirez?
Thanks, Your Worship. The cost of repeating myself, I keep asking this every quarter when the building numbers come in. How much effect has SSM has had on construction in this last year and a half now?
Through to council, we and again, the answer remains the same for what it's worth, councillor, and I apologize for not having more detail, but we haven't seen a lot of uptake on the 3 and 4 units. There has been some interest, although I don't know if we've issued any permits for those yet. But again, I think importantly, what the bylaw did was by consolidating the R1B, which was the detached dwelling units, with the R1, with the R1SL, it's taken out the process of needing to get rezonings and variances and those sorts of things to allow to build secondary suites and detached secondary dwelling units that have been in for a long time. So it's really removed that red tape. So we've seen a lot of progress there. And we are excited to see some, again, we have had some, for lack of a better term, tire kicking on the 3 and 4 units. So hopefully we see a little bit of that infill development happen in the future.
Good. Councillor Shoesmith?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Audia Kelly. Seeing as this in no way is restricting anybody and only making things more permissive plus housekeeping, I'd be happy to move the option number 2 and just save everybody the time.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Can we actually move 3 readings and adoption in the same meeting? I thought we had to have a clear day between the 3rd reading and adoption.
If I may, through to council, I believe that the legislation exempts zoning bylaws from needing that extra day.
Okay.
One thing that has come up that we may want to clarify, though, and this may be leaning towards only giving it the 3 readings tonight, is if this bylaw requires approval from the Ministry of Transportation and Transit, which I'm not sure if it does not, but I'd hate to have to bring it back and rescind third reading or do something like that. So in the spirit of that, I want to acknowledge that the recommendation number 2 there, again, it's come up recently. We may want to just move forward with 1 just to be sure that we're doing things properly.
Just to continue, if I may. In that case, Your Worship, just to prevent the, albeit small, opportunity of this having to come back and us rescind and do it again after transport, I would propose that we, because I don't sense that there's a giant urgency of projects piling up waiting for this legislation to pass. So I would propose that we go with option 1. And if Councillor Shoesmith is amenable, if we don't, no one seconds his original motion, it will just die on the table, and then we can just move on with the second one. I'd be happy to move the 3 readings without adoption.
Councillor Shoesmith?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure my motion was even properly recognized or completed, so I'd be happy to just let it die on the floor. And I would then second Councillor McIsaac's motion.
So Councillor McIsaac and Shoesmith, could we just read 1 out for the Deputy Corporate Officer? Thanks.
That zoning bylaw 1750 amendment bylaw number 2551-2026 be given first, second, and third readings.
Anything further? Councillor Nixon? Oh, no, you're just going to vote. Call the question. All in favor? And that was unanimous.
Thank you.
And that brings us to item 11.2, the license of occupation downtown patios, a report from our acting director of corporate services, Ms. Neal.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here before you tonight for the license of occupation for a downtown patio for a new license of occupation agreement for a new upcoming restaurant, the Rumor Mill. The patio application was submitted after the March patio renewals were approved and had been to council. And now a new application is being brought forward for council consideration. Nope. So the patio is located at 291 First Avenue, and the proposed operator is doing business as the Rumor Mill. The agreement before you this evening is for a proposed up to 3-year agreement, similar to the other downtown patios. Council has previously supported downtown patios through the license of occupation agreements, and this application is being considered separately as it is a new business that is establishing operations. So planning and corporate services have reviewed the proposal and application and confirmed that this patio meets policy requirements relating to safety, accessibility, and operational standards. Some of the benefits of this patio application is that it supports local business growth, contributes to the downtown vibrancy and animation, similar to the other downtown patios, enhances the visitor and resident experience, and is consistent with the established patio approvals through the policy. This is just a quick visual here for you. So we have First Avenue on the left, and then there is a clearly delineated zone leading into the stop sign. And then the patio is right in front of the upcoming restaurant, the Rumor Mill. And it is in accordance with the policy. The patio size is 25 square meters, and the annual fees and revenue are as outlined in the patio for that square footage. Here's just another visual with the red outlining where the patio would be. And then on the right hand is just some of the design standards in accordance with the policy. And the staff recommendation here before you is that council approves the license of occupation agreement for those portions dedicated in front of the restaurant for the outdoor patio season for a term of 3 years at the specified fee of $10 per square meter, and that the mayor and corporate officer then would be authorized to execute the agreement upon completion of the required public notice period. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Seeing as we just updated a number of other patios a couple months ago for 3-year terms, and then this one is coming now for a 3-year term. When that 3-year term is up, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, would we prorate this one so that they're all renewing at the same time? Or are we going to kind of have this perpetual cycle of renew most of them and then one later?
If I may, prior to the license of occupation agreements expiring, similar to this year, I would come to council, and then this one would be grouped in with the majority of the other applications. The patio season runs from, like, you're allowed to operate a patio and have it erected on the streets from May 1st up until October. So that would come before that patio season. And then, yes, this new restaurant would fall into the same cycle.
Further, if I may? Thank you for that clarification, because my concern was 3 years' time, we decide not to renew it mid-June. And then, yeah, be nice to get it all aligned with everybody.
Yeah, if I may further, yeah, we'll bring the renewals well before May again so that all the business operators can know how to plan for their summer months ahead. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Radas.
Just a comment, Your Worship. Excellent addition to that part of the downtown, having a nice animation facing the street. Just wonderful that this is coming through.
I agree. Anyone else with any questions? Can I have our Deputy Corporate Officer read the recommendation?
That council approve the license of occupation agreement, downtown patio agreement, for the use of portions of dedicated roadways located adjacent to 291 First Ave for an outdoor patio, 357-672 BC Limited, the Rumor Mill, for a term of 3 years for a specified fee of $10 per square meter, and that mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute the license of occupation agreement upon completion of the public notice period.
Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Shoesmith, second by Councillor McIsaac. Any other questions or discussion? No. Call the vote. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Neal. The next item on our agenda would be reports from council members, but in the interest of time, does anyone have anything burning that they wanted to report, or can we defer the reports to our next regular council meeting? Then if I can ask our Deputy Corporate Officer to read the staff recommendation to close the meeting to the public.
That the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to Section 91A and Section 91I of the Community Charter, as the subject matter being considered at this time relates to a personal information about an identifiable individual who is being considered for a position as an officer appointed by the municipality and to discuss advice that is subject to a solicitor-client privilege.
Can I have a mover? Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending this evening. We very much appreciate it. And we are going to adjourn the meeting at 7:36 p.m.